You've probably heard of the Book of Ruth. It's often seen as this beautiful story of loyalty and love. But what if it's actually more than that? According to our source material, this ancient narrative lays out a surprisingly detailed definition of poverty and a powerful two-part framework for how a society can tackle it. So today, we're going to dig into how this story might just be a timeless blueprint for social justice. So, the story kicks off with a total crisis. I mean, look at this timeline. Naomi's life just completely falls apart. First, a famine forces her family to leave their home. Then, her husband dies. Her two sons get married, which is great, but then they die too. In what feels like the blink of an eye, she's a widow with no heirs in a foreign land. This series of tragedies is the spark for everything that's about to unfold. Okay, so how exactly does this story give us a blueprint for justice? Well, here's our game plan. We'll start with Naomi's personal story, then we'll unpack the source's really unique definition of poverty. After that, we'll look at the two solutions we see in the story, the immediate help from the Gleaner's Law, and the much deeper solution of the Redeemer's duty. And finally, we'll see how the source says this ancient idea is still relevant today. All right, to really get this, we've got to start with the central character, Naomi. Her personal crisis is what sets the stage for this much bigger conversation about what poverty really is. So when Naomi finally makes it back home to Bethlehem, her old friends barely recognize her. Now, her name, Naomi, actually means pleasantness, but she tells them, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara," which means bitter. You gotta understand, this is way more than just sadness. She's basically saying her entire identity has been wiped out by her loss and replaced by bitterness.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Naomi's story isn't just a personal tragedy. Our source material argues it's actually the key to a much, much deeper definition of what poverty is.
So, according to the source, poverty isn't just about not having money. It's defined as a state of deprivation of fullness of life and the blessing of productivity. Think about it. For Naomi, her husband was her fullness of life, and her sons, her future, they were her blessing of productivity. So in this view, poverty is the loss of family, of purpose, of your ability to contribute. And this quote really nails the core idea. Poverty isn't just a tough situation, it's a condition so profound that it can literally change who you are. It's the force that, as Naomi herself put it, changes the pleasantness of life to bitterness. Okay, so we've got the problem defined. What about the solution? Let's look at how this ancient society tried to fix it, starting with a really practical system for immediate help. I mean, put yourself in Ruth's shoes for a second. You're a foreigner, a widow, you have no family to back you up, no money, no property. How are you supposed to survive? What was the plan for someone like her?
Well, the answer was baked right into their economic policy. It was called the law of gleaning. As you can see in this quote from Leviticus, landowners were literally commanded to leave some of their crop behind. And get this wasn't about encouraging charity. It was the law.
And the law was super specific about how this worked. Farmers had to leave the corners of their fields. They couldn't go back and pick up stalks they dropped. If they forgot a bundle of grain, they had to leave it. And all of this was specifically set aside for the poor, foreigners, the fatherless, and widows. This system let people provide for themselves. It was about support, sure, but it was also about dignity. And here's the kicker. Ruth fits the description perfectly. Foreigner, fatherless, widow. Check, check, and check. The law was literally designed for someone in her exact situation. So when we see her out there in the fields, it's not just a lucky break. It's this ancient social safety net working exactly the way it was supposed to. But gleaning was just about getting through the day. It didn't solve that root problem of poverty, as the source defines it, that loss of family, land, and a future. For that, you needed a second, much deeper law. So that left a huge question hanging in the air. How could Naomi's family line and property, her fullness of life, be brought back? With her husband and sons gone, the family name, their land, it was all about to just disappear. Who could possibly fix that? And that's where this concept of the kinsman redeemer comes in. It was a legal and social duty for a close male relative to step in, marry a widow, and have children to carry on the name of the man who died. It was about redeeming or buying back the family's future. And this is where the character, Boaz, becomes the hero of the story. He's the one who steps up and fulfills both of these duties. First, he follows the law of gleaning, letting Ruth gather food. Then he goes beyond the law with his own generosity, giving her extra. But then he takes the ultimate step and acts as the kinsman redeemer, marrying Ruth and completely restoring Naomi's family. Okay, so here's where the source really brings it home. The argument is that these aren't just dusty, ancient laws. They're timeless principles for how to think about justice and compassion. And our source draws some really fascinating parallels to today. The gleaning law, which was mandatory, is seen as a kind of systemic obligation, maybe like an income tax that funds social programs. The extra grain Boaz gave, that's like a voluntary donation, a free will offering. But the marriage, the redemption, that's framed as something way deeper, a lifetime association with the poor. And that last one, that's the real game changer here. True restoration, the source says, isn't a one-time handout or a check in the mail. It's a permanent, personal commitment. It's about actually entering into a relationship to help restore someone's fullness of life. But, of course, the story also shows us that this kind of commitment isn't easy. It has a real cost. See, there was another relative who actually had first dibs, a stronger legal claim than Boaz, but he refused. And his reason? He said it would affect his estates. Basically, it was too risky for his own bottom line. He did the math and walked away. And that really is the question the source leaves us chewing on. When we're faced with a chance to help restore someone's fullness of life, we all have a choice to make. Do we play the part of Boaz, the one who takes on the cost and the responsibility to redeem? Or are we the other relative, the one who sees the need but walks away because we're afraid it might affect our own estates?